Hey, hello, Andrew. So I looked at your question and tried to come up with a solution for this, and I think we have it. It can be a little glitchy at times, and I'll explain as we go along. But basically, we're going to use the sound control program SFX6 to play back our music, and we're also going to use that to send MIDI cues over to QLC Plus to tell it to go to the next light cue. We can't do individual light cues, but we can just send a go command. So once you've got your cue structure set up in QLC Plus, the SFX6 will be sending a go command as if you were pressing the button to go to next light cue, etc. So I have a example of QLC Plus up here. I just did a couple quick scenes and then just repeated them in here to see to show you what I have. So again, look at my video about creating a cue list, etc. And now I'm going to start up SFX6 here. And listen to these instructions carefully because it's a little fussy and you have to make sure that you get everything done properly. I'm just going to get these windows alongside of each other. There we go. All right, I'm going to say create a new production here. I'm just going to call it time code version 4 because I've been experimenting a little bit here. It comes up and asks me about my audio patch, and currently mine's just set to my internal sound card in the computer, so it could be that, or if you have an external sound device on your computer that plays back to speakers, it could be that also. Just make sure that's set up and just click OK. And then it'll come up with basically a blank screen here. Now a couple things that we want to do before we get started. First of all, we need SFX to send MIDI, so we've got to set up the MIDI. Hopefully you've installed LoopB, and if I look in my tray icon here, you'll see this LoopB internal MIDI. Basically what that does is it allows us to create kind of an internal MIDI cable. So we've got a MIDI connection between SFX6 and QLC Plus. All right, so I'm going to go into File here, Production Properties. We already did the audio patch. I'm going to do MIDI patch. And you can see there's nothing here, so I need to create a new patch. And it's MIDI out. We're not going to worry about MIDI input, just MIDI out. Select a device, and I'm going to select my LoopB internal MIDI. And finally, don't forget to put a check mark here to make sure that this connection is active. And then we click OK. Next thing we're going to do, so we're going to be running this show on time code. So next thing we're going to want to do here is I want to put my time code column up here so I can see it in my cue list. So I'm going to right click, show column, and say time code. And I can just slide this over right here so it's right next to where I want it to be. So I have my time code, I have my elapsed file time, I have my remaining tile, and then title or whatever we want to type in there in the cue number. Okay, and then another thing we're going to want to do is go view and say clock. And clock will appear up here in the corner. You can stretch it to make it bigger and in position there where you like it. I'm just going to kind of stick it over here for the time being. All right, and just keep in mind if you look at SFX6, so my cues are going to be in here in the list. Up here is showing me what cues are currently queued up and what cues are currently playing. So let's get started here. So I'm going to take a sound cue. I'm just going to go drop that there. And I'm just going to, I have some files here from a middle school show that I did. I'll put this one in here. Oh my God. So we've got the audio file in here. If I were to click on it, it looks like it's ready to go. It has the yellow thing. If I click go, so I do have audio and that's playing back. All right, now the next thing we need to do is to put in a MIDI cue that's going to tell QLC Plus to go. So I'm going to drag a MIDI up here and drop that in and then highlight this one. Now I need to go down to the bottom and tell some things about this MIDI cue. First of all, what kind of command it's going to be? Well, I'm going to make this a note on command. It's going to be on MIDI channel 1. It could be on any channel, but we'll just stick with 1 for now. Now, your two pieces of data, this would be the actual note, like B flat, C sharp, D, whatever. And this is going to be the velocity or how loud the note is played. So I'm just going to generally say, you could pick any note you want. I'm just going to say 10. This number here is the hexadecimal for it. You don't need to be concerned about that. And I'm going to give it a velocity of 64. You can make it a velocity from anywhere from 1 to 127, but 64 is kind of in the middle. Now, we need to also send a note off command, because the reason for that is if we send a note on command to QLC Plus, and then we try to send another note on command, the same note on command, it's going to say, it won't understand it because it's going to say, you already have this note on. I can't turn it on again. It's already on. So you need to basically turn the note on and off for it to understand each cue. So we're going to put a note off command in here. And it's going to be the same channel. It's going to be the same note because we're going to turn this note number 10 on and then off. So I'm going to say note number 10. You can leave this at 0 because it's going to be basically turning it off. Timing wise, let's just click over here. I'm going to click 1. So you have hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, okay? So at 0, it's going to turn the note on, and then 1 second later, it's going to turn the note off. One more thing you need to do, don't overlook this, down here at MIDI output, we need to select MIDI out 1, which tells it that we're going to be using that loop beat connection, which is our MIDI out 1. Double check over here under triggers, make sure that this is enabled. It just simply means that this cue is going to be able to be fired. Now, let's hop back over to QLC Plus here. So I have my cue list widget here. Basically, I want this MIDI cue to fire a go command over here. So I'm going to double click over here, and it's not going to be the playback cue, it's going to be the next cue because that's what I want it to fire. So I'm going to click here auto detect, and then I have this cue queued up. I just want to make sure I had a yellow thing there, so I clicked on it. If the yellow thing is not there, it means there's something wrong, that this cue is not completed down here and there's a problem with it. It'll show an X, but if it shows the yellow thing, it means it's good to go. Auto detect, I fire my cue. See how that went and changed? All right. You'll probably just get a number in there, but I have a profile that's loaded up here, and that's why it's saying marker next on that. Okay, so that's good. We know that SFX is communicating over here to QLC Plus. So every time you fire that cue, then it's going to go to the next cue. So now, keep in mind, QLC Plus, we go to run mode. To get this cue list started, you need to do start. So that fires the first cue. So a lot of times what I'll do with the first cue is just make it something like generic, like your blue lighting or something that you're going to start your show with. From then on, all my cues I fire from this cue list over here will advance it over here. If you watch, when I hit go, this will advance to the next cue. See it advance? Okay, so we've got that connection working. That's working for us. Click stop again, goes back to scene 1. We'll go out of run mode. All right, so now I have to add some more cues here. I can simply highlight this MIDI cue using the traditional Windows commands. Control C for copy. Going down here, Control V, 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 V. I'm going to add a whole bunch of MIDI cues. All right? Because I'm going to be changing lighting as this song is happening up here. And as we can see, this song is 2 minutes and 8 seconds and 907 milliseconds long. All right, so now I go to here. I'm going to go up to cues, and I'm going to click on Learn Time Code. All right, you'll see this start to flash down here. And you can also use the shortcut, which is Control L. And you'll see Learn Time Code start to flash. This is my time code clock. Right now I'm set at 000, so I'm starting right from the beginning. And I'm going to click the go command, and then it'll start playing that audio file, and then I can click the go command to set the timing for each of these MIDI cues. Okay, now before I start doing the time code and learning the time code, we're going to type in a couple things here. I'm going to type in the time code. I want my audio cue here to start at 0, so I'm going to double click and type in 0. I would also like this first MIDI cue here to start right at 0, right at the beginning when the music starts. So I'll double click and type in 0 also. Now I'm going to do my Control L, or Learn Time Code, and make sure this is flashing down here. And starting up here at 000, my clock is set at 000. I'll just click go. Next cue. Next cue. Notice how it's putting the time in. Next cue. Next cue. Next cue. Next cue. Next cue. And I'm just going to stop my time clock. So you get the idea then. So that the timing is set then for all this to happen. And notice that this timing got a little messed up on me here, my first cue. So I'm going to go back and just fix that by double clicking in here and typing in 0. Double click here and type in 0 for my first light cue change. All right, so now learn time code is turned off. And I can actually, this is where it's a little glitchy here too, because you can turn the learn time code off and on by clicking here. But also you can turn it off and on by clicking up here. So I'm going to get rid of that learn time code. Cue up my first cue. Now we're not going to hit the go button. First of all, let me hit stop once and clear all these yellow things out. We're not going to hit the go button. We're going to highlight up here. Okay. And then we're going to set our time clock to 0. Double click it, type in 0, set to 0. Now, all I have to do is click on my time clock, and one of the things you can do is just click here. And it will start the music, fire my first cue, then it'll fire the next lighting cue at 9:20, then at 15 seconds, then at 21 seconds, 27:31. You can see that cue fire. Next one's at 15 seconds. See that cue fire. Okay, I'm just going to pause it by clicking on there, or I can actually pause it or stop it. I'm going to reset my clock again to 0. So basically I would be starting my time cues from the beginning here again. Now this time I'll turn on my go over here, fire my first cue. So if everything's well and I'm communicating, every time it fires one of these MIDI go cues, we should advance to the next cue over here. Let's see if that happens. So make sure we reset the time clock to 000, and looks like we're good. We have learn time code turned off. Should be able to click here. And as you can see, it fired scene 2. Next scene, it'll fire at 9 seconds. You can see it advance to scene 3. Next cue is at 15 seconds. You can see it advanced. If I click on the time clock at all, it will pause it for a minute. And if I click again, it will pick up where it left off. So we've already fired a 21-second cue here, and our next cue is at 27. It'll also remember where we are. We're 26 seconds into the audio track. So it'll pick the audio track up from 26 seconds. And you can see up here that Oh My God 1 is still playing. And we continue to fire cues as we go down the list here. Okay, I'm just going to stop it so we can see everything's working well. The connection's done. Now, let's say we're going to add our next audio file. So I'm going to drag my sound over into here, drop it in here. I'll do Oh My God Part 2, put that in here. And, well, now we have a timing thing that we have to watch for. Don't forget this first audio file is 2 minutes and 8 seconds long. So if I want this audio file to start after that, I'm going to give this a timing of, let's say, 2:09. Okay? When you type things in, it'll do it'll do minutes and then seconds. So if I do 2:09, it'll do 2. You can go through and do hours, minutes, seconds, but you'll get the hang of it kind of like when you're typing it in. But the shortcut, I just type the 2:09 and that'll come up as my starting time for that. All right, so there's my next audio cue. The problem is, if I reset my time clock to 2:09, it will start playing from this audio cue, but it also knows that, I'm sorry, if I were to do this earlier, like let's say I did this at 37 seconds, this audio cue, it knows that there's still time left in this cue and it would play back both cues. So that's why I set this at 2:09. So now when I start, it will start from here, from 2:09. I type in my clock here, 2:09. So that's my starting time. Now I want to record some cues for this, so I have to go back to Control L, which is Learn Time Code. And then I'll click on this to start it. Now I'll use my Go button. Next cue. And cue. And cue. And I'm just going to pause it there so you get the idea. So again, you have to make sure, watch your timing here. This starts at 2:09. If I started it sooner, we'd have overlapping wave files that would be playing in there. I'm just going to save this. So now we can do turn time code off, learn time code. And it's weird again because it shows it's still being on up here but not down here. So I would just turn it off. Now when you play back from the beginning here, if we, let's hit stop just to clear out all our things. I'm going to select up here. Again, set my time clock at 0 because this first cue up here starts at 0. Now it will proceed through the entire cue list. So if I start, all right, and just for the heck of it, click stop again. I'm going to go back to here. Let me get my QLC turned on here so you can see it actually advancing cues. My Q1, I'm ready to go. So that's up in operating mode and we're ready to send cues and stuff from here. Let me set my time clock to 0. And I'm back at the first cue. I'll click. Boom, scene 2, we're up and running. I'll just let this run down a little bit so you can see. Now I'm going to pause it here. So it'll go down and complete the list. This cue is at 37 seconds. This music will continue to play until it's done at 2 minutes, 8 seconds, 907. And then this one will start at 2:09:02. Now we can jump ahead here if we want to. I've just paused it. Just remember that you're also skipping light cues, so you may need to, in your QLC Plus, jump ahead a couple light cues to get to where we need to be. One of the ways you can do it too is you can hit stop. I can select what cue I want to start with, so I can select my cue that I'm going to start with here. Like let's say it happens to be this cue right here. Click start from there, so that cue is started. Actually, I guess I want to start the one before that because it's going to fire this cue. So let me go here. Let me hit stop once. Let me go here, hit start. So this cue is currently up. This cue is going to fire next. I want it to jump to this music and then start firing this cues to check them out. So I'm going to set my time clock at 2:09. Down here, I'll go 2:09. So that is set. Time clock set to 2:09. So now when I click it, it's going to start from here and then fire these cues. See it fire them? Okay, so you get the idea. Now there is one glitchy thing about this that I noticed, and I'm just going to turn this off for the time being, shut down. When you're going to go through and you want to jump around, you need to start up at the top first. I think because it looks at the entire cue structure. So if I hit stop and then I just highlight here and set my time clock to 2:09. For some reason, it won't fire the MIDI cues. It gets that's a little glitch that it has. So the workaround for this is this. Start up at the top. I'm going to click stop here to stop everything. Start up at the top. Set my time clock to 0. Just start this for a moment. And then just pause it. Now I'll reset my time clock to 2:09. Now when I click here, it'll jump down here, fire this one, and start firing these cues. Yeah, so that's the only little glitchy thing I found about it. When you're going back through to check everything, you need to make sure that you start up here at the top and then let it play a little bit. Then you can pause it and then jump to wherever you want to jump to. So if you have several wave files. So you just continue to do the same thing. If you want to drag in another wave file, you can drag and drop. I just put the sound in. I can put in my next wave file here. And again, if I want to do some cues for this one, these have no timing. I do a control copy, V, and just put those in there. I don't know. Let's see where this one is 256. So you have to figure out timing wise here where that's going to go. We're at 234 here. So again, you need to make sure you figure out the timing. Otherwise, you'll have two wave files playing at the same time there. Okay. But then you just simply do the same thing. Then I would highlight this. And let's say I want this to start at 3. Well, that's 3 seconds. I want to do that. So we want to do 3:0, which would be 3 minutes. I can do Control L, learn time code. That's flashing. I'm going to set my clock to 3:0. So I'm set to 3 minutes. Okay. So when I fire now, and I got my learn time code clicking, start it. And you notice exactly what I said here. It's playing the two wave files because this one's not done yet. It picked this one up. That's why you're getting that cacophony. It picked up this wave file because the time clock said, wait a minute, this wave file is still got a ways to play yet. So it picked up both wave files. So again, you'll have to figure out your timing here, like what, when the next wave file is going to play and how many seconds that is, all right? Or how many minutes, seconds, hours that goes for. Okay, hopefully you'll find this helpful, and if you have any other issues with it, just again try to follow my instructions exactly, because like I said, it is a little bit glitchy at times. Okay. Okay, Andrew, I forgot to mention one thing, so I thought I'd mention it at the end of the video here. In QLC Plus, make sure under Inputs and Outputs that you have selected as your input Loop B internal MIDI. Do not select any other, like do not use Loop B as an output, just do input. Otherwise it creates a kind of a circle and it short circuits the MIDI, and Loop B will keep muting itself. If you have a problem with Loop B ever muting itself, you can look down here. There'll be a little red X through it. If I right click this and the mute mark will be checked, you just uncheck it. You can see how it has a red mark on it? Yeah, if you accidentally do something messed up here with the assignments and the outputs and inputs, it'll do that. It'll short circuit and you just have to unmute it. So it should be just checked Loop B internal MIDI as your input under QLC Plus.